morning, everybody. It's Friday, so it must be Friday Facebook Live with our panel of legal experts this morning. And we're very excited for everybody to join us today. This is our last Friday Facebook Live session with the legal experts this year. We look forward to many more next year, but everybody get your questions in. So to start off, I was asked by one of the nurses this week, please don't read out the bios. We know Carl and Chris and Jacob well enough by now, so I'm not going to be doing formal introductions. Jacob is unfortunately not able to join us today. He is on a flight from Texas, and I just missed him. I flew in from Texas last night, so everybody's flying all over all over the US, busy time these days. So let's get started with the questions. So I have a lot of questions that have been sent through to me. Some have been posted into the Lafora Forum. And thank you again to the Lafora Forum for this opportunity to answer everybody's questions. The reason that we do this forum every month is because many of you have many questions about this process. It can be very scary, frustrating, and you can feel very alone, and we don't want that to happen. So our legal experts have given their time. So I want to welcome everybody today. Please feel free to share where you are watching from. Give us your name and where you're calling from. So I want to welcome Eleanor, Isiad, Van, Ria, Eloisa. I know Ria, Eloisa, Francisco, Milana. So we have a lot of people watching today, and we're going to get started. So the first question is a confidential one, which was posted by Louise. A pleasant day to Miss Tanya and our esteemed immigration lawyer, so pleasant day to you too. I have two concerns to ask. First, we have seen the recent visa bulletin for EB3 Philippines has just moved for 1 month, and it seems we cannot see big leaps in the upcoming visa bulletins. Right now, I'm just waiting to be current in Table A. My priority date is January 2019, and I'd like to ask if it's a good idea to apply in the UK or anywhere else while waiting to be current. Secondly, so that's the first question. Secondly, may we know the reason why Table B remains to be current despite the slow progressions due to the increasing demand of adjustment of status? Thank you very much. So, Carl, if you want to maybe take that question.
Yeah, so, I think people have to understand that this is, there's a limited number of green cards in each category, and the more people that apply, the times slow down, and the less people that are sponsored for green cards, the times speed up. So back in October 2015, the wait for a nurse for the Philippines to come to the US was over 7 years. And then it's been shortening and shortening and shortening. And I think a lot of people thought this is going to go on forever, and it's going to come down to almost nothing. I know we were just retained this week by a hospital on the East Coast who's applying for 100 nurses. So the volume, I'm sure Chris will agree with me, the volume is really going up. So you really can't expect the waiting times to keep going down and down and down. They're about 1.5 years now, which is really pretty good. So if you're at the beginning of that 1.5 years, you don't want to just sit around the house and wait for the 18 months to be over. So if you want to go to the UK or somewhere else and take a job in the meantime, you're certainly free to do that. As far as the second part of the visa bulletin, that's fairly new. That's only been in the last few years they've had that. And that's actually good that it's current, because that means you can submit all your documents to the NVC without waiting. And then when your number comes up, you'll be scheduled for an interview to get your green card. So we're very happy that they kept the the filing date bulletin so that it's current. I don't know, Chris, you may have some things to add about that.
Yeah, nothing really to add. I mean, I think I agree with certainly with everything Carl said, which is that this is really, it doesn't seem favorable compared to maybe middle of last year, but compared to any time in the last 10 years, this is still some very favorable dates. My sense too is it's probably going to move faster in the next few months. But even a month for month, 18 months is not, frankly, terribly long historically. But I think it's going to move faster once we get into 2020, just based off some of the numbers that we track internally. But again, you know, in terms of if you want to go to the UK, I think that's your decision. And it would come down to what kind of commitment you're going to make. But if you have an 18-month processing time and your NVC bill stage has started, you know, I think there's a chance that you're in by the end of next year and certainly by early 2021.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Carl and Chris on this. We all know each other very well. We've been working together for many, many years. We know this business really well. And I would agree 100%. There is more demand now than we've ever seen for international nurses. You know, Carl was talking about one of his clients. I just came back from a 2-week trip. We're just seeing incredible demand, and that's really encouraging and really exciting for many international nurses wanting to come to the US. But I think, you know, the thing is that it's really just a numbers game, as Carl and Chris have said. So the more people that are being sponsored, the more the timelines are going to go up. And that means there's really urgency to, if you haven't yet passed your English, if you haven't yet passed your IELTS, if you don't yet have a sponsor, now is the time, because it's probably going to go up the way things are looking right now, just from a demographics perspective. So we have a lot of people joining us. We have Apple from Vancouver, Eileen, Trina. Let us know where you are watching from, everybody. I love to see where everybody's coming from, and it's so great to see everybody from all over the world. Jean, hi Jean, nice to see you, watching from Texas. I was there last night, Jean. Carolyn, hi there. Milanis is watching. Chris, so Chris has a question. Hi, I have a question. If you have your interview and the consul told you that you were approved, but upon checking the status, it is admin processing, does that mean that they would need further documents or possibly get a denial? What is the usual turnaround time for it to be approved? Chris.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's just been a few days, I wouldn't think anything of it. It may be a background check issue, which doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything bad with your background. In our office, every once in a while, we see, you know, if your name is similar to somebody else's name, that can slow down the processing, but it can be for almost any reason. What we usually recommend is that you regularly, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, keep following back up with the embassy in order to see what happens. Oftentimes, it doesn't mean anything negative whatsoever.
Okay, so Chris, I know you're anxious, but good advice there from Chris.
I'm anxious too, Tanya.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm anxious too. I thought you were saying Chris.
Oh, okay. No. Chris is asking advice from Chris. Marco Sato is watching. Hi, Marco. Nice to see you. I know Marco. Esther from Ohio, Anne from Manila, Faith from Cebu, Ria from Syracuse. Ria, I hope the weather's improved in upstate New York. It was really cold there last week and very snowy. John, hi there. Joy Laurenti is watching. Hazel from the UAE. Eileen from Manila. Welcome, everybody. We're happy to have everybody here, and keep your questions coming. Okay, so to go back to the prepared questions. We have a confidential one from Louise asking, my I-140 has been denied twice. Is it possible to leave the employment agency that petitioned me without any consequence? I'd like to try with a direct employer. Carl, your thoughts for this confidential question?
Okay, well, obviously we'd have to see the contract that you have with the agency. So, you know, we can't really answer that. However, it's at least been my experience that the Immigration Service is denying a lot of I-140s filed by recruiting firms or outsourcing firms. My advice to a lot of the firms have come to me and asked, well, can you file it and so on? And what I always tell them is have the actual employer, the person that the nurse is going to be working for, be the petitioner, not you being the petitioner, because what they're going to say, and I'm assuming this is why your I-140 got denied, is there's no employer-employee relationship, because the company that's recruiting you is not sitting there watching you do, and saying, do this, do that, do your duties. So we find that having the direct employer apply for you is the best way to go.
Thank you, Carl. Just to mention, though, there are many very reputable staffing companies. So it's very important when you sign a contract, whether it's going to be a staffing company or direct hire, that you make sure that you understand the contract. If you do not understand the contract, don't be shy to ask. Any reputable company will make sure that to give you enough time to answer your questions. And it's very important for you to understand whatever it is that you're signing. There are many good companies out there, but make sure that you ask your questions on the contract. So we have Sherry is watching, Antoinette from Cebu, John from Davao, John from Singapore, Jiro from Ilio City, and Cherry is from Saudi. Hi, Cherry. I know Cherry. Joy has a question. So feel free to post your questions into the chat, and I'll ask as many as we have in the time allotted. So Joy has a question. Good morning. Question: what if the nurse has already a consulate interview scheduled by December and his wife will deliver a baby in April 2020? Congrats, Joy, on the new baby. Can he delay the consulate interview and add first his dependent, the newborn, before he can reschedule the interview? Or can he attend the consulate interview in December and add his baby later on? Chris?
Yeah, both of those are an option, I think. So you can either, in fact, there's even a third option, I think. So the first option is the nurse can go to the interview, and then the spouse and future child can do what's called a follow to join sometime later. That's one option. The second option is they can all go to the interview, and then the child can be added as a follow to join sometime later. And then a third is the husband and wife can go to the interview. And then if travel is okay, depending on the state of the pregnancy, they can come to the U.S. and then have the child here. And then, of course, the child would be a U.S. citizen by operation of law upon birth.
Okay, so Joy, there you have. There are three options. So no need to worry. And I think that's the beauty of this Facebook Live session. And I'm so grateful to our panel for giving their time, because I'm sure Joy is sitting there worrying, Joy Laurenti is worrying about the situation. And here, Chris just gave you three options just like that. No need, scratch that off the worry list. And that's the purpose of what we want to try and accomplish here. So, Minia, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. I probably am not, so please forgive me. Nurse Paul from Saudi, Krista. Hi, Krista. I know Krista's watching. Louise is watching. Welcome, Louise. Nice to see you here. And thank you again, Jean, Louise, and the LaFora team for giving us the opportunity. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay. This is also a confidential one. I am an NCLEX passer, Texas. My husband is a foreign national born in Lebanese. I was able to talk to an agency and they told me I'm eligible for cross-chargeability. How will be the process and what documents we need to submit? This is a question we've had quite often, but if you want to answer that question,
yeah,
I think it was
I'm happy to answer that. So. Yeah, so when under the rules, there's certain rules where you don't have to use your country of birth. I mean, if you're a single nurse and you're from the Philippines, then you're in that 18-month quota. But if you're married to somebody from a different country and the quota is current for them, which it is for Lebanon, you can use your spouse's country of birth. So the good news for you is you're not in an 18-month line. The EB3, the employment-based third preference that nurses use to get their green cards, is current for Lebanese. So you can just go through and escape the line. You can cut around the line, and we do that all the time. So congratulations.
Okay, good. So that's a great answer, and I'm sure it gives you a lot of peace of mind. Confidential question. We actually have a nurse that we welcomed into one of our hospitals in Florida recently. She had waited for such a long time and then got married to somebody who was born in Portugal and came through to the US really quickly. So
and Tanya,
see this often.
I should add, because I just remembered at the end of the question, she said something like, how do we prove it, or what documents?
The documents, yes. Thank you.
Obviously, you want a certified copy of your husband's birth certificate. You want your marriage certificate, a certified copy. And if either one of you was ever married prior, you would want the document that terminated the prior marriage.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
May from Canada, welcome. Lani, welcome. So next question is from Cecile, who asked, H3 training visa, is it applicable to nurses? And if so, is it faster and better? Chris?
No, it's generally not fast. Well, it's generally not better. It could arguably be faster, but you have immigrant intent concerns. We would almost never recommend an H3.
Okay. Chris, is the H3 used for Filipino, like if you're a Filipino teacher? Would that be used? Because we was just in New Mexico this week, and one of our clients was telling us that there's a program for Filipino teachers, and I just wasn't sure which visa they would come through on.
Yeah, we would do a teacher through a green card or an H1 before we would use an H3.
Okay, so you wouldn't use the H3 for that either. Okay,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right, we have a question from Edward. Edward says, I'm a Canadian citizen on the TN visa. My employer has filed for an I-140 petition on my behalf. Congrats, Edward. Via consular processing. While the I-140 is pending, when approved and when at the NBC, assuming that my priority date is current for my country of birth, can I take short trips to Canada? Is there a possibility that I might encounter a problem at the border? If so, how can I mitigate that problem?
Okay, well, so, under this particular administration there, my old employer, the Immigration Service, some of the officers feel like they're prosecutors. So there's always some danger. Legally, though, you're okay. You're able to travel. There's a memo that says that when a person's coming back to the U.S. on a TN, as long as they're not going to adjust their status in the U.S., your consular processing, you should be okay. But everything else being equal, I would say if the trips to Canada are not all that important, then why take that risk that something crazy could happen at the border? So I would say don't travel, but legally you are able to travel. So you have to make that as a personal decision.
So it's kind of like a judgment call. Chris, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I agree with Carl. In most instances, it's not a problem, but in this day and age, as Carl says, the border officers, they sometimes misinterpret. They sometimes feel like their job is to figure out a way to get to know. So if the travel isn't necessary, I'd probably hold off. Having said that, it should be fine though, technically, but that's a little consequence if you're stuck in Canada trying to get back into the U.S.
Yeah. And the thing is that one doesn't know which border official you're going to get. So it's probably safer, Edward, just to stay in the US at this stage. Okay, we have a question from Maria who asked, oh, this is not an immigration question. Well, I'll ask it and see what you think. Maria said, I have failed the IELTS 4 times. Don't give up, Maria. And she's asking, have you seen that nurses seem to pass the TOEFL easier? Carl or Chris, have you got any thoughts for Maria?
You know, I don't, candidly, I don't get too involved in that part of the process. I don't know if Carl does. Certainly, Tanya, you may have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, Maria, I would probably say, look, it's a personal thing and different people, you know, people are different, but I would say most people tend to find the IELTS easier, and definitely don't give up. We have had many nurses who have failed 4 times and failed 5, 6 times and have passed eventually. You're welcome to join the Kinetics Swoosh IELTS support group. It's a free support group on Kinetics, on Facebook, sorry, and we can put you together with study partners and provide free content for you. Don't give up. We have had many nurses that have failed many times that get really despondent and really ashamed of the results, and really it doesn't matter. You can combine results and just keep going, Maria.
I do have a personal comment about that, Sonia. Can you come here? So I'm born in Los Angeles, and have been here for quite a few years. And when I'm always working on my webpage, putting up things, and when I
Hi, Sonia.
I'm the worst speller in the world. I've never taken the IELTS or anything. And when I say, oh, I want to say you have to get a competent attorney, but I don't know how to spell competent. And I just say competent. And this woman from Cebu, who I've been with for 40 years, will always spell it perfectly. So I have great faith that on number 5, you'll be able to pass it.
Okay, Maria, Sonia says you can do it. Carl and Chris say you can do it. Don't give up. Nice to see you, Sonia.
Good to see you.
Okay, we have a question from Rolavi.
Tanya, I think that was our first guest star in all the
Yes, that's true.
That was a great one.
Jacob's gonna get jealous, so he's gonna take his place. Rolavi says, hi, Miss Tanya and the great attorneys, and great attorneys they are. If in case the eldest son will go to college but decides to stay in the Philippines and just enter the US for a year, what is the possible things to do? I'm not sure I understand the question, Rolavi. Chris or Carl, do you want to answer Rolavi?
I'm guessing based on the question, Tanya, but it sounds like maybe she has a son who's going to stay back in the Philippines and go to college.
Like that, yeah.
So the son should, if assuming the son is below 21 and is eligible for the green card, we would recommend the son takes the green card with the mother or father. I'm not sure if we know it was a mother or father. And then they can still attend college in the Philippines, but still maintain their residency in the United States. That way the son will keep the green card, and that way when his studies are finished in a few years, if he wants to come to America, he have that option. It's a little delicate. He may want to reach out to our firm or Carl's firm or something like that to make sure that he maintains his residency in the United States, even though he's going to be spending a lot of his time back in the Philippines attending school.
Okay. So Rolavi, there's great advice for you from Chris. Please reach out to the team, and thank you again to Chris and Carl for making yourself available. We have, the questions are coming fast and furious. So Van asked, good day, I'm just curious, is there a possibility that a nurse can be denied during the embassy interview? I'm so paranoid because before I was approved, I was denied twice at the USC, and I'm so scared that I will experience the same thing again, especially during the interview. Van, we understand how stressful and how scary this process can be, and that's the reason why we do this Facebook Live session for you, for everybody who's watching. Any advice for Van?
Well, there are, in the immigration law, there's about 35 grounds of inadmissibility. So, which means basically if you fit in those grounds, you're not welcome to come to the United States. So, I mean, we would have to know why he was denied before. I mean, I always, most of my nurses don't have any grounds of inadmissibility, and I'm sure Chris would say the same thing. But I always kid around with them, and I say, before your interview, make sure you don't rob any banks or anything, because the U.S. government is not going to be happy about letting you in.
Good one, Carl.
Yeah, wait till you come here to rob the bank.
But I mean, if you've ever committed fraud or have a criminal ground or a terrorist or something like that, you would be inadmissible. But 99.9% of nurses don't have any of those grounds of inadmissibility. So you probably don't have any problems, but you may want to sit down and talk with your lawyer about why you were refused those 2 times.
Yeah, it's really scary. I mean, the whole process can be very, very frustrating and very stressful. But I think, Van, if you've done nothing wrong, as Carl says, it's a matter of always just telling the truth. And hopefully you've got a good lawyer and a good petitioner, and we hope to see you in the US soon. Aurora says, hi, TJ asked, is it okay if an employer files an I-140 for me and my fiance applies for a fiance visa application at the same time? That's an interesting question, Chris.
Yeah, so the fiance visa is ordinarily for U.S. citizens, not for permanent residents. And so what we might recommend is that you make sure that you're married prior to your green card being issued. That's really going to be the most sensible way to work through the green card process. I probably would not consider the fiance visa.
Yeah, okay. And thanks for clarifying that. We're running out of time, but I'm going to try and get as many extra questions as I can. So Karen asked, hi Karen, I know Karen. Can you please explain the process or stages in applying an EB3 visa? Karen, we have very limited time now with the panel who give us this time so graciously. So please reach out to us. We have a little animated video that we can send you, which takes you through the different stages of the video. If anybody would like to see that, please feel free to reach out to us. And I know Carl and Chris have a lot of information on their websites that will take you through those different stages. As we know, it can be very confusing, and it's important to educate yourself. So thank you for asking, Karen. Jairo asked, good evening, guys. I'm a registered nurse here in the Philippines, and I'm planning to take my NCLEX exam early next year, probably by June or July. Best wishes, Jairo. My concern is that I don't know what states I'll be choosing for my exam. I heard it's easier to choose Texas rather than New York. Any advice on that, Carl or Chris?
Well, right, because, Texas is one of those states that you do not need a Social Security card to be able to come to get licensed. So Texas would be a good place. And then once you get the Texas license, you can ask for another state to give you a license based on the Texas license, even if it's a state that usually requires a Social Security card. They'll do that once you have a state license. So that's a good plan.
Yeah. There are very few states that internationally educated nurses can write through, because most states now these days ask for the Social Security number. Jairo, you're welcome to reach out to us as well, and we'd be happy to advise you on that. There's a lot of information, obviously, also in LaFora about which state to write through. But as Carl says, no need to worry, because you can do an endorsement to whichever state you're ultimately going to be working in. And that's where it's important to educate yourself and to work with a good attorney and to work with a good company who can help you to navigate that process. No need to feel alone in that. Maria, watching from Philippines. Aurora is asking, I am a US RN with a current Connecticut as my mainland state license. I'm still doing my CME for my NMI and wanted to work in a specific state, but I'm not working in a hospital setting in an outpatient intensive care in Germany. I'm also an RN here in Germany and getting my Dutch nurse license too. But Aurora, you got cut off. Oh, but we'll be, oh, sorry, I see the rest of your question here. But we're working in residential care. Can I apply? Yes, Aurora, you can. The short answer is yes, you can apply. Just from Kinetic's perspective, as you might know, we are a direct hire company. We specialize in both acute care and long-term care placements for nurses. So if you do not have acute care experience, we'd be able to help you with a long-term care or rehab setting. And we have facilities all over the US. And if you have acute care experience, we'd be able to help you on that side as well. Okay, and we are out of time, but the last question I'm going to ask is from Apple. Apple is asking, I'm asking for a friend, what is the process for the TN visa? How about bringing the common law, which is Canadian citizens as well? Okay, and thank you, Jean, for mentioning that you can help Gyro as well. Jean does an amazing job, everybody, so she can help you with your questions about writing the NCLEX. But to go back to Apple, Chris or Carl, do you want to give us 2 seconds on the TN visa?
Carl, you want?
Oh, okay. So a TN visa. You okay?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So you will need to, well, you have to be a Canadian citizen or a Mexican or Canadian citizen. You have to have a state license. You have to have the visa screen certificate, which means you passed the TOEFL or IELTS and they've evaluated your nursing degree and so on. And then you have an employer in the US who files a petition for you and it gets approved, and you take the petition approval to the Canadian border or to a Canadian airport where they have TN inspectors, and they'll let you into the US for a period of 3 years, and that's extendable. You can get another 3 years after that.
Okay, thank you for that summary. And Apple, if you need more information about the TN visa, please feel free to contact us. So Lani, Ronalyn, Perlita, hi Perlita, I know Perlita, Anne Marino, Helen, Anne Marino, Aurora. So I'm sorry that we're not able to get to everybody's questions. We will try and get into the chat box, and thank you to our legal panel for answering any further questions that are in the chat. I think we are out of time, so I wanted to thank Carl and Chris and also Jacob, who's flying right now, for their time this year. We so appreciate you giving your time. We know how busy you are. And this is my favorite time of the year. Next week we have Thanksgiving and the Christmas and New Year holidays coming up. So we want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season. And as it's Thanksgiving, I just wanted to say that I'm just so grateful to our legal experts and to all of you on the Lafora team and to the Lafora admin team for watching. And we look forward to many exciting things next year. And we hope, for those of you celebrating here in the US, happy Thanksgiving. And I hope that the rest of you will be celebrating Thanksgiving in the US too, soon. Bye-bye, Carl. Bye, Chris.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice holiday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.